Welcome back to Capital Gains. Now we've been delving into the Airbnb situation extensively on this channel, particularly in relation to the real estate market. However, it's essential to recognize that there's more to this issue than meets the eye. Let's take a moment to explore an article on this subject. In case you missed some key concepts of this whole situation, there has been new regulations in New York and various parts of the United States. These regulations essentially place severe restrictions on Airbnb, making it incredibly challenging for people to engage in short-term rentals. To many, it seems as if the authorities are effectively outlawing the platform altogether. Now, you should know that this isn't limited to so-called blue states. Even in places like Texas, such as Dallas and reportedly Austin, similar measures are being taken, rendering Airbnb an impractical choice. It's as though they're saying, you might as well not do it at all. Now we are looking at this crash in the context of its impact on the real estate market. The situation arises when individuals find themselves compelled to sell their properties because they can no longer afford their mortgage payments. This occurs because short-term rentals were their means of covering these expenses. Switching to long-term rentals wouldn't generate enough income to cover the mortgage, resulting in a deficit. This, in turn, affects the limited pool of houses available for sale. If increased numbers of properties flood the market, it could exert downward pressure on prices. It's essential to note that I'm not predicting a sudden crash in nominal prices. As regular viewers of my videos are aware, the real estate market tends to experience a gradual decline. For instance, when we reached our peak in 2006, it took 6 years until 2012 to find the bottom, accounting for inflation adjustments. When I discuss the possibility of the real estate market declining, I'm not envisioning a rapid 50% drop over a month or two, similar to what can happen in the stock market. Rather, I'm referring to a gradual 50% decrease in real terms when accounting for inflation over the course of the next 5 years. While there may be nominal declines, I always emphasize the importance of considering inflation-adjusted prices. Now, let's shift our focus to how the Airbnb situation might affect the broader economy beyond just real estate. Surprisingly, I did some research on this one, which is unusual for me because I typically go off the cuff without reading these articles. However, this time I've highlighted some key points. The article discusses how Airbnb hosts are feeling abandoned by the platform, but what we should concentrate on are the arguments put forth by these hosts, both to Airbnb and their local authorities, regarding the economic hardships that could arise from these bans and regulations. The initial highlight underscores that over the past 10 years, hosting through Airbnb had evolved into a profitable side gig or even a primary source of income for thousands of individuals within New York City. It's reasonable to extrapolate that this phenomenon likely extends to millions of people across the United States. Moving on to the next highlighted segment, during a lengthy public meeting in January, numerous hosts criticized the Office of Special Enforcement for what they perceived as the abandonment of working-class New Yorkers. These hosts highlighted how they heavily relied on the income Airbnb provided to meet their mortgage payments, and its sudden removal is causing significant financial concerns. If you're finding this video informative and engaging, kindly consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Every like fuels the algorithm and greatly aids our channel, and your support is genuinely appreciated. Now let's get back to the video. One aspect that has puzzled me personally is how, over the past 6 months, there seems to be a significant increase in purchasing power and aggregate demand in the United States. When you consider the boost in revenue from stimulus payments and the decrease in expenses due to deferred rent and student loan payments, it appears to add up. Yet, you look around and you still see crowded restaurants, long lines at luxury stores like Louis Vuitton, and packed airplanes. I understand the concept of pent-up demand and the enthusiasm of millennials and Gen Z travelers, often referred to as revenge travel. However, it's still somewhat perplexing. It seems like the average American has more spending capacity than what the conventional economic indicators would suggest. I believe one of the ways they've managed to make ends meet and enjoy this additional spending power is through various side hustles. Indeed, there's a notable distinction between Uber and Airbnb. While Uber may not yield substantial earnings, Airbnb, on the other hand, can provide a significant income boost. This is especially pertinent to the individuals we've been discussing. It's not solely the super rich who are listing their multi-million-dollar mansions on Airbnb. It's the working-class Americans who are grappling with day-to-day financial challenges. These are folks trying to figure out how to make ends meet, dealing with the rising cost of groceries, the daunting expense of college tuition, healthcare bills, car payments, and the constant struggle to secure a stable home. Many of them, particularly since 2020, have turned to Airbnb as a means to meet these essential financial goals. With numerous cities now implementing Airbnb bans and considering the possibility of occupancy levels declining during a recession, it poses a significant challenge for Airbnb hosts. This situation creates a confluence of difficulties. Beyond the potential implications for the real estate market and home prices, the most pressing concern is how this directly affects the lives of millions of Americans who've relied on Airbnb to make ends meet. Moving on to the next highlighted passage, one host describes their situation, stating, "My assets are tied up in my house, and I have very little cash flow." They further explain that occasional Airbnb hosting has been their lifeline to cover mortgage payments. Several hosts in the public comment forum of the city liken Airbnb to a form of public assistance, akin to welfare. For them, Airbnb is the difference between having a roof over their heads or potentially facing homelessness, making it a crucial source of financial stability, often seen as a godsend or a vital second gig. Now, in their current situation with these properties, they find themselves facing a dilemma. They're asking themselves, should I sell at a loss or keep the property for the time being? To address this predicament, many are considering a potential solution. Their plan is to shift towards longer rental periods, such as 6-month or 1-year leases, since Airbnb hosting is no longer a viable option. However, upon exploring this avenue, they've encountered a stark reality. These extended leases don't fetch the same level of rent as their previous short-term Airbnb rentals. Consequently, they've been compelled to significantly reduce their rental rates, often slashing prices by 20 to 30% or more in order to attract tenants willing to stay for a month or longer. It's quite possible that they'll need to further decrease rental prices, because when evaluating the financial dynamics of Airbnb, one of their major challenges is their inability to compete with hotels on an economical scale. Initially, Airbnb presented itself as an attractive platform offering super affordable lodging options. People could rent out an extra room in their home, and the overhead costs were minimal. However, the landscape of Airbnb usage has evolved over time, and with it, a significant increase in associated costs. Hosting guests for short stays, such as 2 days at a time, necessitates regular cleaning, maintenance, and sometimes the hiring of full-time help. These expenses are challenging for Airbnb hosts since they cannot spread them across multiple rooms like hotels can. Hotels can amortize the cost of, for instance, a housekeeping staff member over numerous rooms, but Airbnb hosts don't have that luxury. Although Airbnb charges consumers a cleaning fee to offset some of these costs, this makes them less competitive in terms of pricing compared to traditional hotels. As a result, hotels are increasingly encroaching on Airbnb's market share, targeting their consumer base for obvious reasons. In a specific lawsuit, 3 hosts from New York City expressed their concerns, arguing that the proposed regulations would have dire financial consequences for them. They felt it might compel them to take extreme measures just to make ends meet, including vacating their own homes and re-entering the workforce, even after retirement. This isn't just a New York issue. It affects millions of people across the United States, possibly contributing to the recent rise in the labor force participation rate. Despite the media's portrayal of a booming economy with low unemployment, there are underlying challenges driving this increase. It's important to note that we're not even officially in a recession yet. As we contemplate what the future holds, it's essential to consider the impact of these issues when we face a genuine recession. Your thoughts and insights are always appreciated, so feel free to share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for more thought-provoking discussions.